Welcome back, everybody, to Accounting Simplified. Hope your first two assignments in this chapter 9 were good. As we continue on, we're moving on to our second part of this chapter 9. First part of chapter 9, we talked about how do you journalize transaction uses a purchases journal. We talked about, remember, we're using a merchandising business. We are a merchandising business now instead of a service business as we were in the first 8 chapters. The reason we are going to use a purchases journal is because it happens regularly. Furthermore, it's advantageous to us as a business to buy our merchandise on account so we have time to sell it and pay cash for it with the sales that we had of those products. So this takes off to the next spot is obviously we've bought our merchandise on account. What happens now when we have received cash from sales, when we have to pay this stuff this merchandise that we bought on account? So we're going to use our second new journal. Again, remember, 1 through 8, we use the general journal. Today we're going to introduce 2 new journals. We introduced the purchases journal in 9.1. Now we're going to talk about our cash payments journal, which is our second of 5 journals that we'll use this year. And cash payments journal is exactly what it says it is. It's cash payments. Anytime it says we've paid cash, that means we're going to have our cash payments. So if you can take a look at this right here, you can notice that it has our general, it's there, we have that accounts payable debit, it has a purchase discount credit, and it has a cash credit. We'll talk about those in a second. But again, in our cash payments journal, just like in our purchases journal, this far right column here is always going to be used. This far right column, cash payments. Anytime we paid cash, it's a cash payments journal. It's just that simple, okay? So we talk about cash payments of an expense. So what happens when we do have an expense? So like in this example, November 2nd, we paid cash for advertising, $150, check $292. Well, paid cash should indicate to us we're going to use our cash payments journal. So we use our cash payments journal here, as you can see. We're going to debit advertise. So we're going to put our transaction date, which is November 2nd, right? November 2nd, our date is here. Okay, we walk it right through left and right. You've seen this transaction before. It's actually, cash payment journal looks a lot like that multi-column journal that we used in 1 through 8, just a little bit different here. So we're going to debit 150, we're going to credit cash 150, and our source document was 292. Just a friendly reminder here, this 292 explains advertising expense. This 292 explains what advertising expense is, because this 292 is explained as cash. This 292 is explained as cash. This 292 is explained with advertising expense. Okay, so we talked about that. Our advertising expense, our debit, right? And write the date, write the account title. The account title, and again, just a reminder, it's the account title that explains what's in the general debit or credit column. Write the check number. In this case, it was 292. Notice again, you see the word check, or oftentimes we'll see C as our source document, check, cash, cash paid, credit cash, cash payment journal. A little tip for you there. Write the debit amount, we had the 150, and then write the credit amount and we move on. Okay, so now next one here, let's just say we bought supplies for cash. So we paid November 5th, we paid cash for supplies from office supplies, $94, check $293. Exact same process here that we just did. Obviously, again, I'm going to point out to here, right here, this $94, whatever, $94 that's going on here, that is described what that is here, because this describes what the general debit and credit is. Just like we've done before, over here, there's our cash, it describes that as well, okay? Again, as we walk through it, I've kind of gone through this. This is pretty simple. Pretty straightforward. It's actually pretty easy to use the cash payments. If you weren't 1 through 8 and you were working in the multi-column journal, this cash payment stuff will feel really, really, really easy for you. The only thing that's weird is it's actually just a shortened version and just some couple different titles up there. Okay, so cash payments for purchases. So what happens if we paid cash for purchases? Should we use the purchases journal? The answer is no, we actually shouldn't use the purchases journal. If we pay cash for merchandise, like we do in this transaction, we are going to use the cash payments journal. The only time we use the purchases journal is when we purchase merchandise on account. So if we pay cash for merchandise, we have to use the cash payment, hence paid cash, cash payment. It's a tricky one that students have a hard time with. Again, $600 worth of merchandise. Now you're going to see the exact same accounts that we use. We're going to talk about our purchases account. Now instead of on account for our purchases, we're going to just deal with cash. So our credit won't be in 9/1 when we purchased merchandise on account. On 9/1, our purchases were debit purchases, credit accounts payable, XYZ company. Now it's debit purchases, credit cash, because we're paying cash. So it just changes a little bit. You can kind of see how this is here. We're still going to debit purchases. That's that little expense account that we've talked about on there. Okay, we're going to credit cash like we've always done. Okay, and then we just write our date. We write across here, write the account title, write the check number as our source document. Now the other thing, our check number, you don't need to write C or letter and stuff. You can just write the number. You don't need to write the letter C because we know that it is that check number. Write the debit amount, and then write the credit amount. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Again, only using this when we paid cash. If it doesn't say paid cash, don't use the cash payments. If it says purchased merchandise on account, use the purchase journal. If it doesn't say that, you don't use it. The keywords are in the transaction. It'll tell you exactly which transaction, and source document too. Cash payments on account. So let's talk about what happens when we pay on account with a purchase discount. So sometimes when you purchase merchandise on account, sometimes your vendors will actually give you a discount if you pay early. Okay. In this case, and it's basically an incentive to kind of get you to pay early. In this example here, we paid cash on account to Golfcraft Supply 48404, covering purchase invoice 82 for $498.80, less a 2% discount of $9.96. Check number 302. So kind of a lot of things happening here. Okay. Previous to this transaction, we purchased merchandise on account from Golfcraft Supply Company. Previously, that's already been recorded. That's already in our purchases journal. Now we are paying them, and they said to us, hey, we like you guys. You're really good people here. And since you're really good people, what we'd like to do is if you can pay us earlier, we'll incentivize you and we'll give you a little bit of a discount. Well, who wouldn't take advantage of it? Assuming we had the cash, who wouldn't take advantage of it? So we're going to take advantage of it. So in this situation, since we're paying cash, we're going to use our cash payments journal. Okay. Now we have 3 different accounts here. If you notice here, first of all, how much we're going to use our accounts payable account. How much do we owe them? Well, the total amount that we owe them is $498. If you remember, that $498 basically sits there and has been there from the first transaction that has already been recorded way back in that purchases journal. Okay, so we owe them $498. Well, how much did we actually pay them? Well, we actually only paid them $488.04, didn't we? So right now, if we didn't have this, assume this one's empty, assume we can't see this. If we didn't have this, right now my debits don't equal my credit. So we have to recognize the discount. In order to make our debits equal our credit, we have to recognize the discount we received. And that discount we received for when we purchased something on account but paid it early is called a purchase discount. Basically, this is what it is it's lowering. So if you look at our cash, it's just saying, okay, why didn't we pay the full amount? We didn't pay the full amount because we took advantage of this discount. Okay, so once we have that, then we're going to use our write our date. We're going to write the name of the account vendor. Again, this account vendor here is now, in the past, the account vendor was oftentimes the general debit and credit. Well, as you can see, the general debit and credit is not in there. But the general debit and credit here now explains this number. Who did we owe all this money to? Well, we owed it all to Golfcraft Supply. That's where we owed all that money to. That's what that number explains. This title here explains this, what that go-to is. Otherwise, that's just a general random number sitting out there. It's kind of like saying, what are you hungry for? Oh, I'm hungry for food. Well, that doesn't give us enough detail. Well, what's this for? Well, it's an accounts payable. But to who? Oh, Golfcraft Supply. That's what that's there for. Again, we put our purchase discount. And you can see here, now we're going to write the check number and my accounts payable. Okay, I'm going to put my debit amount, which was my accounts payable, which is the full amount. The $498 was what I owed them. That's the full amount. Okay. Then I write the credit amount. Well, I have 2 credit amounts in this situation. in this case. Credit amount number one is I have the purchase discount credit and I have the cash credit. I have the cash credit and I have the purchase discount credit. Okay, so that is there. Here's a little trick that I like to do is I like to take this, figure out the 2%. If I did the math, now on this transaction, it did it for you. Oftentimes it might not, but figure out the cash and then you can figure out the difference. You can get the purchase discount on there. Okay, pretty simple, pretty straightforward. You will have to use your math. Now, one last transaction type that we use, I know we're going a little longer than normal. One last transaction type that we use on the petty cash report is what happens when we have to replenish petty cash. Remember, this is all the way back to, I think, chapter 6. Okay, petty cash is used for when you have little expenses here and there that you just have to miscellaneous go get. You do have an administrator of the petty cash report. Oftentimes it's somebody that just monitors it and records it and all that type of stuff. We do have to record everything that happens in the petty cash in order to replenish it. So if you've got 200 in petty cash and you've used some money, you have to actually replenish it. And the way that you replenish it is you actually fill out a petty cash report. Okay? And the way you fill out a petty cash report is you write the name and the date of the custodian. In this case, it's up here, right? Okay? And you can kind of see how I'm going to go here. You can write the fund total, and the fund total in this example was 250. This has a petty cash of 250. It's going to be different for every business, but it's going to write there. Then basically you're going to summarize the petty cash payments. What that summarize the petty cash payment says, it says, okay, well, wait a second here. What did we spend our money on? Okay, well, it looks like we spent it on some supplies, some advertising, and miscellaneous. Okay, cool. Well, our total payments was basically $214. So it's there, good. So we recorded then the amount on hand. So we need to calculate the recorded amount on hand. So that's us sitting there kind of going, okay, well, like 1, 2, 3, 4, how much do I have left? When I calculated all of this stuff out, I have $35.84 left. Well, okay, that's not bad. Well, then the actual, sorry, I got ahead of myself. So let me back up. Before I do that, I have to calculate how much should I have. Then I go open up the petty cash fund, so to speak. I count out all the money and change that's there, and then I find out, and I'm like, well, wait a second here. I should have 35.44. Uh-oh, I'm going here. Now I have 35.83. I'm short. And that's an expense. So that's an expense. It happens, right? It could be theft. It could be the honest thing too. But you're short that money, you have to basically replenish that money. It's an expense when you're short. It technically acts as a revenue when you're above. More times than not, though, you hope to be dead on, but you might be short. It could be just accidentally like, oops, I forgot to give you a quarter back to it, and you're short. Okay, it could be there. You do have to monitor it and have your cash handling policies in place. But in this case, we're short by $1.59. So basically, what we need to do to replenish this is we need to now replenish the amount is 214. So the way to replenish this is 214 plus the $1.59 that we're short for a total of $216.15 for a total. Now this, if I take that right there is going to get me back up to my 250. If I didn't replenish the amount that I was short, I would not start back up. I wouldn't get back up to my 250. Okay, so then when I replenish it, then again, we've seen this before. We've actually done this transaction in chapter 6, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but we put the date of it, and you can see over here, we can put my account titles, okay, that I spent it on. So basically this says I'm going to debit supplies office, I'm going to debit advertised expense, debit miscellaneous expense, and I'm going to, I'm going to credit cash order over, okay? So, and so I'm sorry, I think I want to believe I might have missed, no, this is a different, here's why. This slide right here, so if I go back to this slide right here is an example of when we are cash short. This slide right here is an example of when we are short, and you can see. This slide, when I show you my petty cash here, notice the numbers are different. That's why we're now cash over. This slide is a different set of numbers than the previous slide, and that's why we're cash over. So in this example, we're cash over, and therefore what I'm going to do is I'm going to credit it, okay? And at the end of the day, I write, I'm there. Now, a lot of times students want to sit here and they want to take and write all of these different cash amounts down here. You don't have to. You only need to write one, because we're only writing one check back. we're only going to write one check back to the cash payments, to the, I'm sorry, the petty cash account. So there's that. Then we'll account titles, we'll put our dates. Again, we've done this transaction. This transaction has already been done, chapter 6. You can kind of see how this kind of goes here. But we've done this transaction in these steps that have been here before. Okay. Lastly, just kind of moving on here. So what we need to do next is we're going to take our journal. So once we're done with it, how do we total, prove, and rule? Again, we're going to take our cash payments journal, we're going to add them up, ring them up. Now, the one thing that you have to realize here is this, is my debit columns. So the sum of this debit column and this debit column needs to equal my credit columns. Debits always still equal credits. That's still always a rule there, okay? And you need to make sure that they're there. Now, what happens when you have a new cash payments journal page? Well, guess what? You're going to basically, it's our old friend brought forward, carried forward, okay? So we're going to put carried forward at the end of the previous page. We're going to do brought forward at the beginning. We transfer those numbers down. We're going to prove cash just like we've done in the past. I'm not going to go over it because we've done that. There's an other lesson out there for you to cover, okay? But again, you can kind of see how this works out here. Again, brought forward, carried forward. Brought forward is on the new page. Why is it brought forward? Because that number was brought forward from a previous page, okay? So then we get here. Then at the end of the month, what we need to make sure that we're going to do is we need to make sure that we are going to total it up, right? Total it up. Again, my debit columns need to equal the sum of my 3 credit columns. I'm going to prove and rule. We've done this before. This should feel old, okay? Old and new. Okay, so again, if you talk about this, we paid cash on account. What do some of these examples look like here? Okay, paid cash on account to Heim Supply. Again, very simple here in this example. We're covering P166 less 2% discount C13. Okay, number one, first of all, students get really kind of caught up here and get kind of tricked up because they see 2 source documents. Good rule of thumb, use the source document that is at the end of the sentence. Okay, that P166 in this example is already out, already been transactioned, that's already been taken care of in the purchase journal. We did that a while ago. This is the new one. So usually the second source document is the source document in which we need to follow. You'll see that it's a C318 rather. So we're going to put that in there, okay? So what do we got here? My accounts payable debit. Well, how much do I owe? My accounts payable debit, how much do I owe Helm Supply? Well, I owe Helm Supply $1,285. I put the big number under the accounts payable debit. Think of it this way. Biggest number, accounts payable debit. Second biggest number, cash. The smallest number is going to be the purchase discount if there's a purchase discount. Think about that. Okay, little trick for it. So then, how much was the purchase discount? Well, it says I got 2% discount. So I take 1285 times 0.02. Don't forget the 0.02. It's amazing how many times I see students like 0.2. You didn't get that good of a discount. You got a 2%, not a 20%. So it's a 2%. You should make sure your decimals are in the right spot. 2570. Then basically, if I take this 1285 minus the 2570, I get my cash amount of that. And that's an easy way to calculate. Again, little trick. Big number is accounts payable debit. Next biggest number is cash credit. Difference is purchase discount. That's that 2% discount that they talked about in there. Again, petty cash, replenishing it, just kind of walk through it, right? I put the date of the transaction. You can see that it's September 30th. Where did I get that? It's right there. Okay, I'm going to take there. I'm going to put my advertising expense. You can see I have my advertising expense. I can have my miscellaneous, supplies office, supplies store. I'm putting all my numbers here. Okay, I've already kind of calculated out whether it's over. I've figured that out. Now, if you can see here that I am over, in this example, I am short 12 cents. Okay, so you've seen 3 different examples of a petty cash journalizing. First example, we were short by like $1.53. Second one, we were over. In that case, it would be a credit. In this case, we're short again. More times than not, we're gonna be short, just the way it works. But you gotta be able to journalize both types of transactions, just in case there. So you're there, you have that. Again, if I take all of these up, add them up, ring them up, that's going to get me this number right here. And that's going to be my total. That's my one check. And I'm going to write back to petty cash to replenish the amount. So we start back at that beginning amount that's there. And in this case, it's $200 because it says it right there. Okay. Hope that's helps. Good luck with that. If you like this video, please remember to click subscribe and turn on notifications. And best of luck. Thank you.